Hey, what's up, everybody? Izzy Presley here, getting ready to jump into episode number 14 and to welcome a very special guest by the name of Billy Vera. Yes, Billy Vera and the Beaters. And Billy Vera and the Big Band, number one hit in 1987 for 15 weeks, I believe it was. Won a Grammy last year. It's going to be a really fun interview. But before we jump into that, must tell you about our sponsor, Rockstar Leatherworks. Leather, bands, and watches. High-quality, handcrafted leather gear. RockstarLeatherworks.com. You buy one, you're going to want to buy more. They're just that damn good. I cannot wait to see all your pictures. You ordered it, and you emailed me and said, Izzy, you were right. This stuff is absolutely amazing. RockstarLeatherworks.com. Check them out. Leather bands and watches. Handcrafted, real leather stuff. Hairball will be in, let's see, tonight, which is Saturday. They're going to be at the Myth in Minneapolis All Ages Show. Next Friday night, the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. Yes, the infamous Surf Ballroom. Buddy Holly's last gig is what made that place famous. Very cool venue. And then the Potawatomi Casino up there in Milwaukee on next Saturday. All right. Oh, you can contact me, Izzy, at izzypresleyproductions.com. Facebook page is facebook.com/another effing podcast. And via Twitter. Izzy_Presley. Or just check out the website, izzypresleyproductions.com. Without further ado, here is episode number 14 of another effing podcast featuring the one and only Billy Vera.
You kids with your loud music and your Dan Fogelberg, your Zima, hula hoops, and Pac-Man video games, don't you see? People today have attention spans that can only be measured in nanoseconds.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 14 of another effing podcast. I'm your host, Izzy Presley, and a very special show today. I am joined by a Grammy Award winner, a man who had a number one hit for 15 weeks, was it?
15, 13, who's counting?
Hey, the more the gooder, that's what I say. The one and only Billy Vera. Don't ask him to get on the guest list. That's what it said on the back of the record, right?
Yeah, Billy, no guest list Vera.
Billy, no guest list Vera. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna talk about your whole career. Actually, talk about your whole life. Why not?
Uh-oh.
We're gonna start from the beginning, I guess.
I was born.
You were born. Big Bang Theory?
In a world.
Was it the Big Bang Theory or was it evolution? I'm kidding. So you're a California native.
Yeah, I was born in Riverside. My dad was stationed at March Field, which was the Air Force base out there during the war. He was a pilot, taught the boys how to fly B-24s.
Mm-hmm. That's kick-ass. That's kick-ass. So he was a pilot, but he didn't actually get into wars or anything like that. He was just a military guy.
They were just about to ship him out, and they were driving down to San Diego to go to the South Pacific, and some stupid kid threw a rock. And he was riding in the passenger seat, and the rock went through the window and blinded him in his right eye.
Oh, wow.
So he never had to see combat.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing. So he never.
Yeah.
But
probably saved his life.
Right. Exactly. So, but your dad was Bill McCord.
Yep. He was a radio announcer by trade, and he had worked in Cincinnati before the war.
Okay.
At a station called WLW, which was at one time 500,000 watts, and then the government made him take it down to 50,000.
That's a huge station.
Oh yeah,
wow.
It could be heard as far away as Brazil. Or
wow,
I mean,
that was FM.
No.
Oh, that was AM. I suppose, yeah, that would have been the era.
Clear
of AM.
channel, and then when he was on there was 50,000, and they could still be heard in 40 states.
Yeah, it's insane how AM signal just flies. I used to work for a station back home. And we had people that tried to tune us in like Iceland because they have these really huge antennas. They fly up in the sky and they listen to AM stations all over the world.
Oh yeah. And WLW, as a result of their clear channel, you'd be amazed how many big stars came off that station at a time when people performed live. You had Doris Day, you had Merle Travis, the great country singer. You had Fats Waller, the Mills Brothers. I'm trying to think of the other female singer, Rosemary Clooney.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so many people came off that station and became stars. My mom, after the war, they gave him his job back. So my mom, who was a singer, she sang on there. And she had, at one time, 11 shows between radio and television a week in Cincinnati, and we stayed there through first grade, my first grade.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. So you've had the entertainment business in you pretty much your whole life.
Well, Georgie Jessel, show business is my life, sweetheart.
So what is that kind of what inspired you to get into music and all that stuff, or is that just kind of something that happened?
Well, I came of teenage.
Okay.
At a time when rock and roll was just starting. I was 11 or 12.
So I'm going to stop you there because I heard Lemmy make this statement in the Lemmy movie where he said that he remembers before there was rock and roll. Mm-hmm. So you remember before there was rock and roll?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I remember I was in 6th grade, and one morning one of the kids said, "Hey man, did you hear rock and roll last night?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "Man, Alan Freed." We were living in New York by this time.
Okay.
He said, "Man, Alan Freed, rock and roll, man, rock and roll, 1010 wins." You know, that was the station.
Uh-huh.
And so I went home at night, and I fell out, man. I said, "This is God. I've seen the light. Holy Hamid."
Yeah.
You know. And I just started religiously listening to rock and roll after that.
Do you remember the first song you heard?
I don't, but I remember among them.
Okay.
Were the Cleftones, Little Girl of Mine, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, Shirley and Lee, Clarence Frogman Henry, Ain't Got No Home, you know, things like that. And it was just wild, man. It was just, there was a beat to it, you know, and you wanted to dance, and you know, in those days it was all about the dance. Mm-hmm. And we all started dancing our little 6th grade, 7th grade dances, you know, on Our Lady of Mount Carmel, in the hallway there, in the dance hall that they had, and it was just great, man. We all wanted to be rock and rollers then.
Right. Do you remember the first time you heard Elvis?
I do. It was Heartbreak Hotel. You know, now we know that he had made 5 records before that on Sun, but I didn't hear that. I later became friends with some guys who were like 4 years older than me, and there was a country station apparently in New Jersey that played, you know, Hank Williams and all that. And like Dion told me, he heard of Hank Williams in the early 50s, and you know, Dion's like 5-6 years older than me. And this guy Chip Taylor, who was a songwriter, who really taught me to be a really good songwriter. Right. And Chip and his friend Ted Darrell, who wrote a song called "She Cried" for Jay and the Americans later, they listened to this country station in New Jersey, and they heard the Elvis records on Sun. But I was, you know, 11 or something. Right. So all I heard was what was on the pop stations, which was Heartbreak Hotel. And you couldn't miss it. I mean, if you were under a rock, you couldn't miss it. Yeah, it was probably one of those things they played at 8,000 times an hour. 8,000 times an hour. Yeah. You know that, which reminds me, it's amazing. Like with movie stars and as well as music stars, who has legs, who fades away. I mean, back then the Platters, only you know, those guys. They were on the radio as much as Elvis was, but who talks about the Platters today? Nobody. And they were great records and great songs. Absolutely. But
yeah, it just shows the power of the king of rock and roll, baby.
Well, and why do we remember Jean Harlow and not Norma Shearer, who was a bigger star than Jean Harlow in the 30s? You know, what transcends time? Interesting, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like I said, we're going to get into that later, but you have a song that does transcend time.
Thank God.
You know, thank Lemmy.
Yeah.
Did you ever cross paths with the King?
I never did. Never met him. I met some of the guys that hung with him. You know, his Memphis Mafia later. But I'll tell you, my only Elvis story, and it had nothing to do with meeting him. is I was playing in New York. I was playing it on a Shirelles recording session, and we took a break, a bathroom break, and it was at RCA, and I was walking down the hall, and they have these little mastering labs where they prepare the tapes for to press up on albums for sale. So usually when you walk down that hallway, you hear Dolly Parton, David Bowie, Perry Como, John Denver, whoever else was on RCA at that time. But this day, it was Elvis out of every lab. And I said, what's up with that, man? I said, it's not his birthday. It's, what the heck could that be about? It's really weird. They're having a special promotion. He's going to Vegas. I mean, what? Well, we went back, finished the session, got in the car on the way home, and that's when we heard the word that he had died. And they were on it that fast.
Wow.
I mean, on it that fast. 2 weeks later, there were 18 Elvis albums on the Billboard charts.
Wow.
They knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, well, that gets into my whole conspiracy theory too. But we're not going to talk about that. So what was the first instrument you ever picked up?
Drums,
okay.
Of all things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, back then it was like the drummer was kind of like the leader of the band, wasn't it?
Not really.
Not okay. That was an earlier time, or is that just kind of a?
I don't know. I think it varied. It just depended on the band. You know, those big bands.
Yeah.
Cops are coming for us, man.
It's Highland Park.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
You know who grew up in Highland Park? Chief Darrell Gates.
Really?
Yeah, he was a fan of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, believe it or not, I knew his girlfriend, Gina, a hot Italian chick, you know, and she brought him to see us play one time, and ever after that, he the chief, you know, man, he was the chief,
right?
And she had us play when the Los Angeles Police Historical Society honored him, and there was like 2,500 cops there, 5,000 cops there, and in this big hall in the hotel ballroom, and you know he wanted to hear us play, and when he was dying, he had cancer. She called me up one day. She said you know, call the hospital. She says Chief wants to talk to you. And I could hear he was weak in his voice. And this was this important guy, man. You know, I mean, he was powerful, one of the most powerful guys in L.A. at one time. And he had this weak, cancer-stricken voice. And he said, man, you know, I always loved your singing. And he said, don't forget me, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's Highland Park.
Yeah. Wow. That's
where he was from.
See, you don't get these kind of stories talking to my roommate that plays with Richie Ramone.
That's right. He didn't know
I
that.
know you guys love him, but this is the kind of stuff I love. Okay, so you picked up the drums.
Yeah. My parents they saw that I liked music, you know, and I started banging on the piano at home, and you know, I think the drums was the first thing. And they got me a drum teacher. A guy who worked for the NBC Symphony, because my dad was on NBC.
Okay.
And so this little old guy would come and he'd teach me all the rudiments of drumming. And you know, I did that. I played along with all the records. And my dad would bring home 45s from the NBC record library, because they didn't play rock and roll and they didn't play jazz. And I remember the first jazz album he brought me home was Meet the Jazz Tet with Benny Golson and Art Farmer. And I'd try to play along with those guys.
Yeah, not easy.
Not easy. But I'd do it, you know. And then I saw Chuck Berry on American Bandstand one day. And I said, wow, I want to be him, you know. And so I saved up my little lawn mowing money and my snow shoveling money until I got $35. And I went to Sears and bought an electric guitar, a black and white silver-tone guitar, which I wish I still had.
Well, of course, yeah.
Those are, you know, collectible now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those old silvertones, absolutely.
Oh man, it was a bad sound. It was, you know, the only guy I ever saw that really played one was a guy named Alvin Robinson.
Okay.
And this is some years later, in the '60s. And we were the house band at this club up on the border of Connecticut and New York, See, in Connecticut, drinking age was 21, and New York was 18. So any club that was on the border, on the New York side, had lots of people.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of 18 to
Oh,
21-year-olds. And this was the best club. On weekends, we had hit record acts, one on Friday and one on Saturday. And we backed them up, which was like going to music college.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, I learned, A, how to read music, B, how to play for singers, which is a skill unto itself, and C, how to perform. I watched them from behind, you know. I'm standing up there, and I saw what worked with the audience and what did not work. And that was like going to school. Anyway, the Dixie Cups, go into the chapel. Those chicks, they're from New Orleans. Well, their guitar player and band leader, well, they didn't have a band. Nobody had a band. They bring a guy to conduct these awful house bands.
Yep.
And we were soon known as the best backup house band in the whole East. So here's this guy, Alvin Robinson, and he was playing. I said, Alvin Robinson, man, I got a couple records you made. He said, really? You got my... And this was a dude, man. He could sing like Ray Charles, like better than anybody. And he played a black and white Silvertone guitar, man. It sounded a little better than when I played it.
Right.
I'll tell you that. But he made a record called Let the Good Times Roll, not to be confused with the Shirley and Lee song. You know, don't people see me, but they just don't know that one.
Yeah.
That Jimi Hendrix later recorded. And Alvin did it first. So that was the only guy I ever saw play the Silvertone.
Well, it's funny that you said Chuck Berry. And one of the reasons I started playing guitar wasn't exactly because of Chuck Berry. There was two reasons. One, because I'm a Kiss geek and Ace Frehley is my god. And secondly, because of Back to the Future, the high school dance scene when they're playing Johnny Be Good.
Johnny Be Good, yeah.
I'm like, that's it. That's what I gotta do. You know, it's just weird how it all comes around in one big circle. And it's funny that, you know, you were in a backup band for all these pop people that would come in. There's actually a metal guy now that's doing that. He was a replacement singer in Judas Priest. Glenn Ripper Owens is his name.
Oh,
and he's doing that now too. He's like, he'll go to play gigs in South America and he'll just hire a band there. And
well, Chuck Berry did that all the time. Chuck Berry. I backed him when he was a $1,300 a night act, and I backed him when he was a $50,000 a night act.
Wow.
You know, over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now he's also notoriously cheap. I mean, the dude sleeps in his Cadillac so he doesn't have to pay for a hotel.
Wow.
On the road. I mean, the guy's worth millions and millions
absolutely.
and millions just from his songwriting alone. And he won't hire a band. He won't bring a band. And of course, you know, his songs are not the hardest things in the world to play. But in those days, to play them right is not easy. And he won't rehearse. He won't tell you what song is next. He won't tell you what key it's in. He will just start playing it, and you got to figure everything out, like from note one.
Wow.
So, but I think he did. Can they curse on here?
Absolutely. Say whatever the fuck you want.
Okay. So he does that just to fuck with you. You know, and he quickly ascertained that I was unfuckable. You know? The dude could not fuck with me, man. I got, and finally he turned around, he gave me a smile and said, okay, dude, you got it, you know. and I got a million Chuck Berry stories, so I mean, I won't waste your time with it, but he was quite the character. He looked like, on American Bandstand, the sweetest, kindest. He's nuts.
You can see it in the eyes.
He's crazy.
You can see it in the eyes.
Yeah. Well, at 13, you don't see it.
Well, right.
You know.
So you were playing, when you saw him at Bandstand at 13. How old are you when
we played
first
with
time
him?
You backed him?
I think it was about 1963, so I would have been 19. We were backing all these. You know, the first weekend we had a back acts, the two hardest acts in the world. Friday night was Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells.
Wow.
They were doing songs like Danny Boy in D flat. You'll Never Walk Alone in B natural, and you know you had to negotiate those changes, and they weren't doing it with like common changes. The changes were really weird and great, but weird. Saturday night was Little Anthony Imperials during the era when they had Hurt So Bad and Going Out of My Head, and difficult songs for the era.
Right.
And we came through. We made it through Trial by Fire, and I said, man, if we can back those two acts up, we can back anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Patty and them. Their manager was so cheap they wouldn't hire a guitar player, so they all they had was charts.
Okay.
And I said, man, what's it like on the road? They said, it's hell. They said, there's only two bands that play our music right. It's you and this band from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania called the Magnificent Men. And they said, other than that, it's just a nightmare.
So that was kind of the thing at the time, though. So like
Yeah.
all the solo artists, that's pretty much what they did.
Yeah, I mean, except for the big stars.
Right.
I mean, a Wilson Pickett or a Fats Domino or they'd bring their own musicians because they were getting bigger bucks.
Right.
But R&B acts didn't get a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were $400, $450 a night acts, less 10% commission to an agent, less another 10 or 15 to a manager. With the Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, less the cost of having your gowns cleaned.
Right.
The gas from driving up from Philadelphia and driving back the same night because you couldn't afford to stay in a hotel. It was rough. The first gig I had when I had a hit record with Judy Clay, Storybook Children. Now, this is 1968, end of 67. The first gig we had was in Buffalo. We drove from New York to Buffalo, 400 and some odd miles.
Wow.
And
Blizzard?
no, thank God. It was, but we drove up there, man, for $450, $400, I forget which. Now, knowing what these other acts had gone through, I said, I'm bringing a bass player and a guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured we'd get by with a drummer, to say, play 2 and 4, stupid.
Yep.
Me play drums.
Yeah, right, And so we drove all the way up to Buffalo, did the gig, drove all the way back that same night. Like a 900-mile trip, round trip. But, hey, we're in showbiz.
That's right. That's right. Big time, baby.
Yeah.
Don't you know who I was?
The tinsel and glitter of showbiz.
Yeah. At what point did you start writing? How
think,
long did it take you to, I can actually write songs?
Well, I don't know. I wrote some little dopey doo-wop songs, when I was like 14 or so. And my mother's vocal coach had a wife who was a musician. And they sort of indulged me, and they went in and made some little demos with real studio musicians.
Yeah.
And nothing ever happened with it. But in 1962, when I graduated high school, I joined this band called the Night Riders, with a K, the Knight Riders, with a hyphen in between night and riders.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That made you big time.
Yeah, they were already happening,
Right.
locally. They had made a record.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah, a real record.
Well, back then, that's huge.
Yeah, because, it's not like today when every asshole, on the street has an album out.
Right.
Every kid whose daddy can afford to buy him an amp and a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that, So, they made a record. And so they fired their singer, who was a psychopath, and they hired me. And this psychopath singer claimed he wrote a song, and he said he wrote it for me. Well, that should have been my first clue. It was a great little song. And we recorded it. We got some guy, Vinny Super, guy drove a Chevy, a convertible, and he put up the money, and we went and made a record in a real studio, and we needed something for the B-side, so I had a song that I wrote, and we put that on the B-side. So the record comes out, and it does something in Connecticut, and it actually went to #1 in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple years later, I found out that my side that I wrote was a hit in Louisiana and Texas.
Really?
It had that southern thing,
Uh-huh.
for some reason. And but nationally, the record didn't do anything.
Mm.
So we wanted to get the tapes back so we could press them up ourselves and sell them in the clubs, We were
yeah.
enterprising
Yes.
dudes. Yeah. So they said, well, we won't give you the tapes, but we'll give you the 2,000 that we got left in the warehouse. and we sold those. right? And so the guy says, "Hey man, you got any more songs as good as that one on the B side?" I said, "Yeah, I got a couple songs." They said, "Well, we got this guy named Larry Spear. He's running our publishing division now." So Larry Spear was a hair lip.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that song. and so I played him a couple of songs, and he liked two of them, and he gave me $35 a piece for them, for the publishing, and he paid for a demo. Now, one of the two I had written for this new girl singer that I liked called Dionne Warwick. And, I was so naive, I didn't know that Burt Bacharach had her all tied up, production and songwriting. So I said, "Can you get that song to Dionne Warwick?" "Yeah, we can get anybody, So 2 weeks later, now remember, I was a soul music fanatic. Black music was all I wanted to hear. And so 2 weeks later, which is an eternity to a 19-year-old, he calls me up. Larry Spear called me, "Hey, I got a record on your song." And I said, and so I'm trying to be all, snarky and sarcastic, like, any 19-year-old asshole could be.
Right.
And I said, "Oh yeah." I said, Who you got? B-side of a Joe Blow record?" He said, "No, I got Ricky Nelson." I said, "Ricky Nelson? He's white." He said, "You ungrateful little putz." That's New York talk.
Yeah.
And he says, "Ricky's going to do your song 5 weeks in a row on the Ozzie and Harriet show. You're virtually guaranteed it's going to be a hit record. Be grateful, you little fuck."
Yeah.
So I said,
wait, what do you mean? Be grateful, you little fuck.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So the record comes out, and it had the distinction of taking Ricky's being Ricky's last chart record.
Oh wow!
Before he made his comeback with Garden Party some years later, but I couldn't figure out. I said, "Man, my soulful song being done by this white dude," and I realized my guitar player in the band, the Night Riders, was a James Burton fanatic, and so he was playing like James Burton, and I, who thought I sounded like Ray Charles, was sounding more like Ricky Nelson.
Yeah.
In my little 19-year-old voice. And so it was a perfect demo for Ricky to record. Years later, many years later, I did a movie with Ricky's daughter, Tracy. And we were talking. Her dad had died a year before that. And she told me, I said, "I don't know if you know who I am, but, your dad recorded a song." "Oh, I know who you are." She said, "He used to sing it in his show." I said, "Really? He sang it?" I could have heard him sing it live at the Palomino, and I was so, it hurt me, man, because I wanted to. I wish I could have met him, and,
right?
Because he made a great record of my song. Can you imagine the first song I ever took to a publisher not only gets recorded by a big star, but becomes a chart record? I said, "Wow, what an easy business."
Ha!
Famous last words.
Famous last words.
That's how they hook you.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's that little drug. Here it is.
Yeah.
It's this easy. Yeah, right.
Sure it is.
Right. So then you also went on to write for, Fats Domino?
Well, that song first was recorded by, that was the first song I ever wrote with Chip Taylor.
Okay.
Who later would write Wild Thing and Angel in the Morning, big songwriter. And the song was given to a singer named Barbara Lewis, who had a couple of hits, both on the pop and R&B charts. And she had a summertime hit with it. This is 1965 or 6, I think 66. And in those days, if you had a hit song, a lot of people would record it. They'd write foreign language versions. So we had versions in French and Italian, probably Japanese, singing that song. And about 2 years later, Fats made an album. Fats Domino made it. And Fats was a hero. I mean, the first day I ever went to a record store, I bought 3 records when I was 12. I bought Blueberry Hill by Fats, Honky Tonk by Bill Doggett, and a song called Priscilla by Eddie Cooley and the Dimples, which was a big hit in New York.
Okay.
Anyway, so when Fats cut my song, even though his career was over record-wise, I was like thrilled, man, that Fats fucking Domino. I met him years later, and I told him, you know, that I said, you know, you recorded a song of mine. And I told him which one, and he said, "Make Me Belong to You." He said, "Ooh," he said, "I have 5 daughters, and that's their favorite song of mine." So I thought he was jerking me off,
Right,
you know?
right.
And then years later, when I moved out here, I became friends with a guy named Paul Gayton, who was a big star in New Orleans music in 1947, 1951, around there. And he grew up he knew Fats well. I told him that. He said, "Man," he said, "if Fats told you that, he meant it." He said, Fats ain't sophisticated enough to bullshit." Fats don't bullshit.
Oh man, that's great. Let's see, what else do we got here? Let's see, the Shirelles, Ricky Nelson we covered in the Barbara Lewis too. And Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah, well I went through a period. You know, I'd had a couple of hit records. You know, with Judy Clay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We were the first integrated male-female duo to sing love songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was not cool.
Right.
You know, and we didn't get a lot of work. We worked at the black theaters, and we worked at blue-collar white theater. For some reason, you know, just regular working-class white people liked us. But we worked the Apollo Theater, which was a great thrill to me, because I used to go there as a fan, and I'd be like, me and my friend would be the only white people in the whole theater, and we'd be looking up there, and I'd be saying, "Man, I wish I could be on that stage, man." You know, everybody from Duke Ellington to Billie Holiday to Ray Charles, they all have stood there on that sacred wood, and there we were, man. The way it worked in those days, it was you worked a 7-day week, and you did 5 shows a day, with a bill that had maybe, I don't know, 7-8 acts on the show, and everybody did 3 songs except the star, who maybe would do 20-25 minutes, 5 times a day, with a lousy movie in between, hopefully to clear out the audience,
right,
because you could stay all day if you went in there at 10 o'clock in the morning, for $1, you could stay all day.
Wow.
And up in the top balcony, all the winos and junkies,
Yeah.
they'd be there to get out of the heat in the summertime and get out of the cold in the wintertime.
Built-in audience.
Yeah, they stay there. So the show closed on Thursday night, and after that, then the new show would rehearse in the basement for Friday morning's debut. And so the theater manager was a guy named Honey Coles, Honi, of the famous tap dance team, Coles and Atkins. And so Honey said, "Look here." He said, "Harlem hasn't seen you two yet." He said, "I got an idea." He said, when we play your chase music to bring you on," he said, "Judy, you enter from stage right, and Billy, you enter from stage left. And you let her take 3 steps onto the stage before you make your entrance." See, these old dudes, man, they knew all the showbiz tricks, and it was, again, like going to college, being around those guys. So I did it. First show, 10:30 in the morning. 1, 2, 3. I would watch her take 3 steps, then I enter. 1,500 people gasp, and I heard them going, "That's him?" Because they hadn't seen our picture yet.
Okay.
They didn't know what I looked like. And they're going, "That's him? That's him?" I could hear him out there in the audience, man. And so, and Honey had put us on second, which is the worst spot in the show. See, the opening act is all flashy choreography to get the audience excited. Then you put on the worst act to get it over with. Better, star. So Honey comes up to our dressing room after the first show, and he says, "Listen, I'm going to change up the order." He says, "I'm putting y'all on right before the star." He says, "Because ain't nobody going to follow you two motherfuckers."
Wow.
We killed them. We killed. And to this day, a couple months ago, a piano player, a friend of mine, young jazz guy, calls me up one night, and he says, "Dude, He says, I'm over at the Apollo, man. He says, your motherfucking picture's on the wall here in the lobby. A little younger looking,
Right,
but they in other words they remembered, you know.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah,
It's like this place that you went to as a fan, always wanted to play. You finally get to play there, and now your picture's on the wall.
Yeah, that's 40 years later.
40 years later.
Yeah,
It's absolutely insane. So the song that you wrote,
Storybook Children.
Storybook Children, yeah.
We see Barbara Lewis was on Atlantic Records,
Okay.
which was the greatest R&B label in history, and so that having a hit on Atlantic gave us entree to the great Jerry Wexler, who was like the head honcho up there. And so we wrote this duet song thinking maybe he'll record it with a couple of Atlantic artists. So we did a demo of it with me and this girl from up my way singing, and we played it for him. And he pounds his fist on the desk. He says, "This is a fucking smash, man. Get rid of the girl, the demo, and I'll record you for Atlantic Records." I'm flipping out, man. You know, it's one thing to have my name in little tiny letters under the title in parentheses.
Right.
But to have my name on a fucking Atlantic record, man, I was like, oh, fuck. You know? So we had to go find another girl. So I was, as you know, I was friends with Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. Mm-hmm. So one of the girls in the group, Nona Hendricks, had a lower voice than Patti, and we thought it might blend well with mine, and she was pretty, and
that helps.
It helped, yeah. So we went and we recorded with her. But then their manager got in on the act, and he got scared that she'd quit the group if we had a hit. And the girls and Patti and them were all for it, because then they said, well, no, we need Billy could be our guitar player, and we wouldn't have to worry about these terrible bands.
Right.
And then Billy and Nona can go out and sing their hit. We could sing our hits. He'd get more money for the act. It'd be great. No. So that was, and we had already recorded it with her. So now we had to go audition like 20 other girls, and they all sucked, man. And they didn't suck. They were good singers,
right,
but they sounded like they should be on Broadway singing Stephen Sondheim songs.
Right.
They weren't wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're just about to give up, and Wexler called up, and he said, listen, I just signed this girl, Judy Clay. She's a adopted cousin of Dionne Warwick, and she's a great singer. She was, gospel singer. So take a listen to her. So he sent her over. Now she walks in. She was a large woman, not pretty, and she was about 14 months pregnant, and she had a chip on her shoulder the size of Wyoming, and because out of that gospel group, the Drink Art Singers, which was run by Dionne's mother, you had Dionne, you had Dee Dee Warwick, you had Cissy Houston, you had Judy Clay's sister, Sylvia Shemwell, who later was with the Sweet Inspirations behind Elvis.
Oh, wow.
I mean, great singers.
Yeah.
Judy was the lead singer. That's how good she was.
Wow.
Yeah. But she was a little bitter because they had all made it but her.
Right.
And so she had a bit of an attitude. So after she sang, and she sang great, and after she left, they said, the other guy said, man, she sings great, but that attitude, can you think you could handle that? I said, man, I got a sister like that. I can handle her. And I could. And she became a friend, till she died a few years ago. So we put her voice on the track, and the record, most records start to break outside of New York. New York's like the last market where records start to. Our record broke in New York. We'd have all the secretaries calling up the black stations requesting the song, and it became a #1 black record in New York and a #3 pop record in New York. And so we're like heroes. And so we made an album. In those days, they didn't let you make an album until you had a hit single. So we had a second hit called Country Girl City Man. And then I get a call backstage at the Apollo from Jerry Wexler. He said, man, I got some bad news. He said, Judy was signed to Atlantic through Stax Records. Mm-hmm. Our distribution deal with Stax has ended, so you can't record with her anymore. He said, but don't worry, I found you a song for you to record as a solo. He said, it's on a Bobby Goldsboro album. It's a great song. Listen to it. And if you want to do it, when do you finish the Apollo? I said, Thursday night. He said, Friday morning, 9 a.m., we're going to record it. He said, we got to get it out fast because everybody wants to record this song. So I said, wow, if he's that hot for the song, he's going to work it.
Yeah.
And he sent the record up, the album up, and it was great. It was a great tearjerker song, you know, about a marriage breaking up, you know. So I learned it, and we went in and recorded it, and it became a hit. So now I had my first solo hit. And, you know, one thing led to another. My producers got called up in their reserve unit, so they weren't really on the case.
Yeah.
I was contractually bound to them, and I didn't have any more hits. Music changed drastically in 1968. The culture changed drastically in 1968. Martin Luther King got killed. Bobby Kennedy got killed. There was really no place for what they used to call a blue-eyed soul singer,
Right.
anymore. So I'm searching for the next few years. What the hell can I do? You know, I can't be a heavy metal guy, you know, and I'm a soul man.
Right.
I'm not going to put on spandex pants and, you know, and do that thing.
You didn't want to join the New York Dolls, is what you're saying.
No, and I didn't want to be a wimpy singer-songwriter like Jackson Brown, you know.
Right.
I couldn't do that. I hated disco like everybody.
Yep.
Like every musician. Anyway.
I do dig the Bee Gees, though.
Yeah.
The Bee Gees are amazing.
Well, great
Yeah,
melodic songs.
absolutely.
It's all about the songs.
Exactly. That's what I've been saying for years.
Yeah.
It's like
And they had Arif Mardin producing, you know, who did the arrangement on with Pen in my solo record with Pen in Hand.
Aha! I did not know that.
He was an Atlantic staff guy. Yeah, and a sweet man. Sweet man.
Well, you know, it's funny because there's this picture that was going around Facebook for a while, and it was a picture of Beyonce and a name of one of her songs, and it listed the 12 people who wrote that, and it's just and the lyrics is just rubbish. It's terrible. Next to it is a picture of Freddie Mercury, and they got the lyrics to "Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia."
Yeah.
That song, I spacing me off right now, and it says written one man, Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Well, nowadays, you know, anybody that farts on the session is a songwriter.
Oh, okay.
You know, a guy, you know, suddenly the guy that makes a bass line is a songwriter. It's not a song. It's a fucking bass line,
exactly.
Asshole. Anyway, for the next 10 years, I could not figure out how to fit into the music business. And I couldn't even fit into the culture. Because I was born 2 years before the first boomer. And with the boomers came a radical change in everything about the culture. You know, I was wearing, you know, mohair suits with thin ties and thin lapels and, you know, shiny red mohair suits. You know, I was a soul man.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all the hippies were out there, man, with their little bell bottoms and their little American flag vests and all that shit. And, you know, eventually, I mean, I started wearing, you know, jeans and black T-shirts, you know, on stage like everybody else. But I still couldn't figure out how to fit in musically. The only soulful music I was hearing was by guys like Waylon and Willie, you know.
Yeah.
And they were making some good shit back
Absolutely.
then. And the band.
Yeah.
Those motherfuckers were. They put the roll back in rock.
No doubt about that.
You know, yeah. So, you know, I did what I could. There was an oldies revival in the early 70s in New York. And so we backed up a lot of my childhood heroes. And I got to meet, you know, all these wonderful old artists. And we did tons of shows there. And that's when I started playing for the Shirelles and the Ronettes. I played for Ronnie when she left Phil Spector, broke up with her husband. I was her first boyfriend after Phil. And then one night at one of the low points in my career, I'm playing at a Ramada Inn in fucking New Jersey. Right?
Merv and the Magic Tones.
Some bullshit. You know, and you're doing like a 5-day week there. And in the middle of the week at a Ramada Inn, you're playing to 3 lonely businessmen who hate you because the waitresses are coming on to you instead of them.
Right.
Right? So I come off stage, it was a Tuesday night or Wednesday night, and waitress comes over. She says, that guy over at the table with his wife wants to buy you a drink. So I go over to the table, and this crazy guy with a big fucking head and crazy eyes in his head, thrusts his hand in my face and shakes my hand. Vera, L. Russell Brown. I wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. I said to myself, how nice for you. Well, it's like the biggest recorded song of all time.
Okay.
Money-making song.
Right.
I hated the song, but it was a money-making song. So he says, you know what, Vera? He says, you're one of the greatest singers in the business. You're a fucking great songwriter, but you never make any money. Everybody knows how great you are. He says, me, I make a lot of money, and nobody respects me. I got an idea while I was watching you. He says, we should write some songs together. I could teach you how to make money, and you could teach me how to get respect. Well, that sounded like a pretty good idea to me.
Absolutely.
So I started going over this guy's house, in the afternoons. He lived in New Jersey. And we wrote a lot of songs together. Not all good.
Right.
But he had a lot of energy. Some nights we'd write 3 songs in one day, And he showed me some little tricks, melodic tricks that worked for him. And like everybody that does something well, he wanted to do something else. He wanted to be a record producer. So he got a gig producing Nancy Sinatra, a session for Nancy Sinatra, and he says, listen, I got 3 songs. I need a 4th. He said, can you start something? I got to go pick up my wife at the beauty parlor. He said, see if you can start something while I'm gone, and I'll come back and we'll finish it. So while he was gone, I'm thinking, Nancy Sinatra, what the fuck do I write for her? Oh, she got this famous father, right? I love my daddy, but it really don't matter what my daddy might say. And when I see your laughing face, all that. She hated the song, hated it and it pissed him off because she said, "Man, this is a #1 song." I had it finished by the time he got back. And he says, "You got to do something with this song to show that bitch that she's wrong and show that I'm right." So that got me kind of excited, So I got my friend Crazy Joe, who actually worked with Ace Frehley, by the way, on a song called Eugene.
Okay.
Which you might look up on YouTube someday.
I absolutely will, yes.
It's Crazy Joe and the Variable Speed Band.
Okay.
So at the time, Joe had a country band with a girl singer. So we went and we recorded her, but she was lazy and she didn't record the song properly. She didn't sing it properly. And so everywhere we took the record, they said, "Love the song, hate the girl. Love the song, hate the girl." So now I'm at the last guy on my list, a guy named Charlie Koppelman. And I didn't trust Charlie Koppelman. That's why he was the last guy on my list.
Right.
But I figured if I could peddle this master to him, I could get our money back. So he says, "Love the song, hate the girl, but we're recording Dolly next week." He said, she had just come off her biggest hit, that Here You Come Again. He says, "If you give me the song for her, I'll guarantee it'll be the single." So I looked at him and I said, "Well, give me some money and put it in writing." So he has his girl write me a check and write a little letter of intent or whatever. So I'm going down the elevator. I had my hot little 20-year-old girlfriend with me at the time. And she grabs the envelope. She says, "I got to see that check." She says, "Fuck, he gave you $2,500 for," I said, $2,500, which was a fortune in 1978. And I said, "I guess he's serious." So I go down to St. Croix in the Virgin Islands with my little band. These dope dealers used to bring their favorite bands down to St. Croix for 6 weeks at a time. And you'd play there. It was a great gig, not much money, but a great gig.
Yeah, absolutely. Paradise.
Yeah, beautiful island, and we were on the wrong side of the island, not where the tourists don't go.
Right.
And there was the water so clear you could read the newspaper, through it. Anyway, I get a call at the one phone that's on the whole that side of the island, and it's my old manager who's now living in California. He says, I got a deal for you. He said, Eddie Silvers, who runs Warner Brothers Music, wants to make a deal with you as a songwriter, you know, co-publishing deal. But you got to come out here. He doesn't believe you're alive. That's how bad. That's how bad my career was at the time. Wow. So I made plans to do that, and I went, and Eddie signed me. I went back home to my mother's house where I was living like some loser musician, and I put everything I owned into my car, and I drove out to L.A. Every 20 minutes they're playing my song by Dolly Parton. Now, I hadn't had a hit record in 9 years. I thought it was over.
Right.
And I said, fuck, man, I got a hit record again. I'm back in showbiz.
Yeah.
You know?
Going to L.A., going to Hollywood. I'm in showbiz.
Yeah.
My song's on the radio 45,000 times a day.
Yeah.
Score.
Wound up being a #1 country record for Dolly. And not only was I back, but I was back big. You know?
Yeah.
So I came out here. I run into my old bass player, Chuck Fiore from New York. He had moved out here a couple years earlier. And he says, what are you doing on the weekend? I said, I don't know. I don't know anybody here, man. You know, he says, come out to Venice. He said, I'm playing with some guys, really good musicians I met. You know, come out and, you know, see what we're doing. So I go out, and these guys are great. And we became friendly. I sang a couple songs with them, and I was 34 years old by now, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm too old to be a rock and roll star.
Right, right.
I'll just write songs the rest of my life. And so we decided to start a band, and we did, and it was the Beaters, and we became real popular out by the beaches, and so my old manager Al, he said, you know, nobody's going to see you out by the beaches. He says, you gotta play a gig in Hollywood. He said, that's where the opinion makers are.
Right.
So he booked us in this place called Pippi's, which was on the corner of Sunset and Crescent Heights, where that theater complex is now. And it was some Boston gangsters ran it, you know, and it was a big cocaine clearinghouse.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, that's right. So we started playing there, and then and so we met some, you know, great musicians used to hang out there, you know, Esther Phillips and Earl Palmer, the great drummer. And we became kind of, you know, started to get known. And one night I'm having dinner in this restaurant, Maurice's Snack and Chat, a soul food place down on Pico.
Is it still there?
No, long gone. Well, Maurice was this big fat black lady who had been the housekeeper and cook for John Garfield, Loretta Young, you know, Sybil Shepherd, all these people. She decided to open a restaurant. At first, we were the only ones that went there. And then my friend Danny, who became my agent, his father managed Doc Severinsen on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, yeah.
And suddenly all of those people started coming, and it became like the in place to go. So, but there was always room for us. She called us her starting crew.
Nice.
So I'm walking to the bathroom one night through this crowded restaurant, and I tripped over Suzanne Plachette's foot. And Maurice, who was in her cups, says, Billy Vera, she said, you just stepped on that lady's foot. And this man comes up to me, he says, excuse me, did she say Billy Vera? I said, yes. And she said, my name's Matt Kramer. I run Monday nights at the Troubadour, and I hear you got the best band in town. I said, well, yeah, I haven't heard all the other bands, but we're pretty good. You know, and he says, how'd you like to play Monday nights at the Troubadour? I said, well, man, you know, you got all those fucking folk acts there, and they do 20 minutes. I said, I can't bring 10 guys in to do 20 minutes.
Right. He
said, well, how about if I let you go on at midnight and you play as long as you want? I said, oh, let me ask the guys. So I did, and I talked to Al, my manager, and he says, this is great. I said, why is it great? It's midnight, Monday night. It's the worst night of the week.
Yeah.
He says, that's the beauty of it. He says, we won't advertise, no flyers up and down Laurel Canyon.
Yep.
Like all those other asshole bands do.
Yep.
He said, word of mouth. He said, if the in crowd The opinion makers, they like to think they're the ones to discover you. That's how you play them. The so-called hipsters.
Right, right.
He said, if they like you, it might take you 6 weeks. Then you know you got something. So it took 2 weeks. There was lines around the block.
Holy shit.
For a year straight, every Monday night. Like starting at 11:45.
Yeah. Now, what year is this?
1980.
1980, okay.
There was a band called The Knack. They had a song called My Sharona.
Yep.
So in their typical stupidity, the record companies all wanted to sign a band that looked and sounded like
Absolutely.
The Knack.
Like The Knack, yeah.
So we were the opposite of that. We were a 10-piece horn band,
Right.
you know, playing soulful music. And by that time I had a steel player on top of the.
Oh, I love a steel guitar.
It worked so well with the saxophones.
Yeah.
You know, it was
4 saxes.
yeah.
4 saxophones.
And it was totally different sound. But record companies, unlike the days of Atlantic Records and Sun Records and Chess Records, when they wanted different, nowadays, from that point, by the 80s, they just wanted records that sound and bands that sounded like what was already on the charts.
Right.
It was lame.
Absolutely.
Public likes what's different. So anyway, I'd see all these A&R guys from the record companies coming in on Monday nights after they made the rounds, and they'd be smiling and snapping their fingers and tapping their feet and having a great time, but not reaching for their wallets. So once all those Knack-style bands failed, as they did,
Right.
and that's nothing against the Knack. They were a great band.
Absolutely.
Great drummer. They started looking for something else. And that's when we got 3 offers in 1 week.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it changed
Just like that.
Just like that, overnight. So we chose this Japanese record company that was just setting up. It was a big company in Japan. They were just opening offices in L.A. And we figured that we'd get the big push from them. Being on a big company, which we had a couple offers from big companies, we'd get lost. So we went with them. And it was a smart thing to do in one sense. We had a hit record called I Can Take Care of Myself. I just happened to write this catchy little song with a catchy melody.
Yep.
That was good for radio. And it became a hit. Alpha Records, ALFA, they signed a few more acts, and they had no more hits. And the money they were bleeding money. So I made a second album. Oh, the follow-up single was At This Moment.
Right.
Went to like number 79, and then the head promotion guy got in a fight with the boss and quit. So nobody was there to push it up further up the charts. So one thing led to another, and the Japanese pulled the plug on the company. So now we're without a record deal.
You're screwed. You're Munson.
Yeah. You know, you're tied to a failure.
Yeah.
You're associated, you know, you birds of a feather kind of syndrome. So 5 years go by. While I had been at the Troubadour for that year, Chip Taylor's brother, an actor named John Voight, came in with his acting coach, David Proval, one night, and they saw what I was doing up there, and they came backstage, and I knew John from New York, and he says, "Man," he says, "you're doing something really special up there." He said, "You know, most singers, they manipulate the audience. I'm going to make you laugh. I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to make you horny. I'm going to make you feel what I decide you're going to feel."
Right.
He says, "You don't do that." He says, "You just allow the feelings to come out, the emotions." He said, "And then you let them, the audience, feel what they will organically feel." He said, "I've never seen a singer do anything like that before." He said, if you could do that without a guitar in your hand, without a song, he said, you'd be a great actor. Get the fuck out of here, John. I want to be a fucking actor,
right.
Man. That's sissy shit. He says, no, you got to come. You got to come. Come to David's class. Oh, come on. So he talked me into it. I went. Well, the first night I was there, I saw these two guys. This guy, Rocky, who later became Stephen Bauer, married to Melanie Griffith.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And a guy named Chris Mulkey. And there was these dudes were doing some shit up on that stage, man. It was like, wow, this is not bullshit. This is not sissy stuff. This is something real up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stayed, and it took me about 5 or 6 weeks before I got the nerve to get up there. Even though I had been in show business for 15 years, this was new. And it took me about a year or so before I got a little bit good at it. But then I started getting offers to be in plays and then TV shows, and I got in this movie, Buckaroo Banzai, you know.
I did not know you were in that. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. That was a great experience. That was my first movie. And what a cast.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you got Jeff Goldblum,
Mm-hmm.
you got Peter Weller, you got Ellen Barkin, you got Lithgow, you got Christopher Lloyd. I mean, everybody went on to be something.
Christopher Lloyd, that's right.
Christopher Lloyd who was an insane man. He had the greatest line in that movie. What do you mean? It's not my planet, monkey boy. I mean, if he never did anything else in his career, I'd love him for that. So, you know, I was making a living as an actor and playing gigs with the band for peanuts on the weekends. And then one day, 5 years after we had no record deal, I'm reading a book. I get in the afternoon in my apartment. I get a phone call. Guy says, "Is this the Billy Vera that has the band?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Oh, thank God." He said, "My secretary's been calling all over town, looking for you. I was in the phone book." You know? He says, "I produce a show called Family Ties, and we were at the club the other night. We heard you do a song that we think might be right for an episode we're doing." I said, "Cool." Now, I'd had songs on TV shows before. You make a few $100, that's the end of it. So, but I could use a few $100 at that time. Yeah, I'll take it.
I could use a few $100 right now.
Yeah, I know. So, I was like you, man. I wasn't making any money, but my needs were small.
Right.
And you can survive on not much money if you're not stupid.
Exactly.
Anyway, so they used the song, and something happened that had never happened before with other songs on television shows. I get a bag full of mail from NBC. I said, "Whoa!" I said, "People like this song." I knew it was a nice song, but it wasn't the one I thought would be a hit.
Right.
So I called up whatever few contacts I still had at record companies, and nobody was interested in letting me re-record it. And finally, I'm having lunch one day with Richard Foos, a guy that ran Rhino Records that does a lot of reissue. They put out oldies. Mm-hmm. And we were friends, and we would have lunch every once in a while, and we'd argue about whose version of Mustang Sally is the best,
Is there?
Well, you got Wilson Pickett's version, you got the Rascals.
That's kind of like one of those songs where when it gets requested, it's like,
yeah.
I used to work for this band called Monsters of Mock, and I'll let you get back into the story in a second here. And basically the premise of the band was it was a tribute act. The first half of the show was Bon Jovi into, I want to say, Poison. And the band was, on stage, but the singer would have to go off and change costumes. So change from John into Brett.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would go up in my jumpsuit, and we did a whole lot of Rosie as Elvis.
Okay.
With the whole intro and everything, that was great. But the second set is Motley Crue, so they all dress up like Motley Crue for the whole second set. Well, we were in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and in the middle of the Motley Crue set, you got drunk gal coming up, tugging on the singer. He's like, "What? Will you guys play Mustang Sally?" It's like, really? Do you see what we're doing here? I mean,
that's a riot. That's a riot.
And that's
typical.
Very typical.
Typical of clubs.
Absolutely.
The one I used to hate the most was in the 70s was these chicks with the big hair in the Bronx. "Hey, do you do Color My World?" My all-time hate song.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Oh, Chicago.
Oh, okay.
It's I hate it. It's hate upon hate how I hate that song. I just I wouldn't. There's not enough money in the world to make me sing that song.
It was funny. We were following a blues band one night in Faribault, Minnesota. You can smell the meth from here, from that town. But and we're sitting down on bullshit with these guys in this blues band, and they were very good. And they had another set coming up, and I'm a Blues Brothers geek.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean,
Rubber Biscuit.
yeah, the greatest movie of all time, bar none. And I'm like, and I've done, you know, Sweet Home Chicago, the Blues Brothers version for years.
Yeah, great song.
Dude, can I, you guys do Sweet Home? He's like, man, why don't you just ask us to play Mustang Sally? Jesus. Okay, yeah. So apparently that's one of those songs in the blues world. So.
Oh man,
it's too bad, but
yeah. Speaking of which, just to digress for a moment, I wrote a song that became a cult song like that. Never was a hit.
Really?
Don't Look Back by The Remains.
Okay.
Check it out.
Yeah.
It was later recorded by Robert Plant. It's just you'll know when you hear it. Don't Look Back by The Remains.
Yeah, I did see something about that on your Wikipedia page.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah. Anyway, so Foose and I are talking, having our little periodic lunch, and I bring up the Family Ties thing. I said, hey, Richard, I said, how many records do you need to sell to break even? He said, well, we have low overhead at this company. He said, we can probably break even on 2,000 albums. I said, what if I guaranteed you 2,000 albums? Worst comes to worst, I can sell them in the club.
Right.
I said, the guys at the record store are always on my ass, when are you going to come out with a record, And he said, yeah, we could do that. So I had my lawyer make a deal with whoever still owned Alpha Records in Japan to license, an album's worth of my recordings for that label. And I compiled an album of the best of Billy Vera and the Beaters.
Would that be
by request?
This one right here.
Yeah, no. That is it. That's it.
This is the one. This is actually how I got the inspiration to have you in.
Wow.
I was at Amoeba last Saturday, and I was digging through they had the clearance bin for the used records. I'm like, holy shit, something I know. I'll buy this.
It cost you about $0.25?
$1.
$1, okay. You got gypped.
Yeah.
So they by the time they dragged their feet and put out the record, we missed the reruns on Family Ties.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll start selling them in the clubs.
Right.
But the following season, 1986 September, they did a new episode where the girl breaks up with Michael J. Fox. They used the song again. This time, NBC is prepared. When the people start calling in, who's the singer? They know. What's the name of the song? They know. Totally without any promotion from because Rhino Records does not promote.
Uh-huh.
They do not pay off disc jockeys or radio stations. People started calling radio stations. It was totally organic, grassroots phenomenon. And the next thing you know, Rhino Records, who's never had a record on the charts before, they're selling La Bamba remakes,
Right.
Or albums of Louie Louie.
Uh-huh.
And they got a record on the charts. So they hire a promotion man. I go into the company every day, and I'm calling up, hi, this is Billy Vera. When I'm in town, I listen to KRAP on 99 point, whatever that shit. And you do interviews and all that bullshit. The record goes to #1. Suddenly, here I am, 42 years old, and I get a call to go on American Bandstand. I had never done that was my second dream. Apollo Theater, American Bandstand. I go on Johnny Carson. Ended up doing Johnny Carson 9 times. And I'm doing every music show in the business. Dick Clark is like my new best friend. He hires me on every show he does, and he produces all kinds of shows. I'm a presenter on the American Music Awards. I'm doing all this shit, man. And unfortunately, when you have one #1 record, you need 2 more.
Yep.
With one #1 record, the kind of gigs you're offered is opening act for somebody big, for shit money. Well, that's okay if you're a 4-piece, 22-year-old band.
Right.
If you're a 10-piece band with guys that are pushing 40 or some, in my case, over 40, you can't do it. Because these guys have played with the John Denvers and the, this one and that one. They're expecting to have their own hotel room. They're not sleeping 5 to a room, 5 to a bed.
There.
You've been there, right? So we couldn't really do the road gigs unless occasionally we got a headline gig for $10,000-12,000. We could make that. So the career was limited.
Right.
The follow-up. And Rhino had no idea what to do. To their credit, it's not the business they're in. So what they didn't realize is that, radio will give you the first one because the public demanded it.
Right.
But the second one, baby, you got to cross the pond with silver to get on our station. And that didn't happen. So by the time I was a free agent, I was signed to no record company, signed to no manager. I'm getting calls. My phone starts ringing at 6 o'clock in the morning and is ringing until 2 o'clock the next morning, constantly ringing. Everybody wants a piece of my ass. And for the first time in my life,
yeah,
much less in years. And, I played it as good as you can play it. But I chose a manager. I chose Sandy Gall and Jim Morey. They managed Dolly and Neil Diamond and the Pointer Sisters and Patti LaBelle, a lot of big acts. And I got a phone call from a guy and I knew socially a bit, named Joe Smith, who had run a bunch of record companies. He said, "Billy, I just took over president of Capitol Records. I'd like you to be my first signing." I said, "Great." So I went and made an album for Capitol. It got lost.
Which happens.
It happens. It in all honesty, it wasn't the album I could have made. It wasn't the best album I could have made. Despite we had a top 10 single on the adult contemporary charts, but it didn't propel. So that was the end of that.
Now, before I get into the song, I got to think about Dolly Parton. She's like, if you Google her, you cannot find a picture of her tits. Unleashed. She's like...
She's not going to show her nipples.
I'm just saying. It's like...
a country singer.
Well, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, it's like you can go back, you can find, it's like, oh, there was a nipple slip here, there. She's like the fox that got away that nobody's ever going to see, ever. I don't know. That's just my Dolly Parton.
I promise you those are her real tits.
Oh, I believe they are. Yeah. I believe they are.
Because my girlfriend at the time, my little 20-year-old girlfriend,
yeah,
who had a nice rack on her, she said, "Those aren't her real tits. Those aren't her real tits." I said, "Honey, they are." Promise you. I was in the fucking trailer. Those are her real tits.
Slow clap for that.
No, I mean,
no.
I didn't see nipples, but
okay.
But I did.
All right.
She was wearing something low cut.
Groovy.
Yeah.
I'll still give you a slow clap for that.
I got a great Dolly Parton story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I was doing a movie. This director named Bobby Roth, who he used me and a bunch of other people in a lot of his pieces, TV movies he did, cable movies. So he's doing one on the mother-daughter singing team, the Judds. Mm-hmm. And he gives me a small part as their band leader, so one of the scenes takes place in a big hall. It's supposed to be the Country Music Awards, where Dolly Parton presents the Judds with an award. Now the girl that was playing Mama Judd was one of these pretentious actresses, oh yes, and. So Dolly's there that week, and we're all backstage waiting for the lighting to get set up and everything, the cameras. And a bunch of us actors are standing around, and I said, "Wow!" I said, "You can just feel the electricity in this set today." I said, "Do you think there's one person that's not going to go home tonight and say, 'Honey, I saw fucking Dolly Parton'?" So this pretentious actress says, "Oh, well, yes, she has the externals, but I prefer to work from the inside out." All that actor bullshit.
Oh, God.
Well, as if on cue, here comes Dolly Parton. And she spotted me. and she comes, she's not real tall. And she comes over and she hugs me. And she says, "As I live and dream, Billy Vera, honey, how the hell are you, baby?" And this chick like turned 4 shades of red, man. And it was one of those moments, where you say, "Busted."
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was so great. Yeah. She deserved it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I hate people like that. I hate people like that. So the song at this moment, we're going to play it here in a second. ASCAP, if you have a problem with it, bite me. Do you remember about writing that song?
Yeah, I do. I had just met that little 20-year-old college girl, and started dating her, and she was telling me, like most 20-year-old girls, she was a real narcissist,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was hot, and she knew it. And she said, she was telling me about her previous boyfriend and how she broke up with him and how devastated he was and how he wanted to kill himself, all that shit. And so the next day I was at my mother's house and I'm banging away on the piano, and I started writing the song from what I perceived as his point of view.
Yeah.
I got about 2/3 of the way through the song, and I couldn't finish it. I couldn't figure out how it ended. So I put it away. Usually, I toss a song like that. I figure if it doesn't keep my interest to finish it one day, it's a piece of shit, and forget it. But for some reason, I put it in the piano bench, and left it there. And a year later, when she dumped me, I knew how the song ended. That last verse. I'd subtract 20 years from my life because I was there, brother. I was there.
I've been there too. That's why I love that song.
And apparently a few million people have been there because they bought the song. So that's how the song came to be. Yeah.
All right. You know what? Let's play it. Let's play it. This is the live version of it from this is the original release, correct?
Yes, it is.
Was it re-released with the studio version, or was it always?
No,
okay.
The studio version was done for a movie, was never out as a single.
Okay, cool. All right, here it is. Billy Vera and the Beaters at this moment.
What did you think I would do at this moment when you're standing before me with tears in your eyes, trying to tell me that you have found you another, and you just don't love me no more. What did you think I would say at this moment when I'm faced with the knowledge that you just don't love me? Would you think I would curse you or say things to hurt you? 'Cause you just don't love me no more. Did you think I could hate you or raise my hands to you? Now come on, you know me too well. How could I hurt you when, darling, I love you and you know I'd never hurt you? Oh, what do you think I would give at this moment? If you'd stay, I'd subtract 20 years from my life. I'd fall down on my knees, kiss the ground that you walk on, if I could just hold you again. the ground that you walk on, baby. If I could just hold you. If I could just hold you. If I could just hold you.
Such a beautiful song.
Thank you.
Slow clap on that. Do you where did you record that? Do you remember?
At the Roxy on Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
We did 3 nights there. Once we had the record deal, my manager wisely, I'll tell you, whatever his flaws were, and they were not few, he knew his show business, and he said, you know, you guys, your band is not that great in the studio. He said, but something happens in front of an audience with you that is magic. He said, we should record a live album. Well, you know, one of the greatest albums of all time, in my opinion, was James Brown at the Apollo. You ought to check it out if you're not familiar.
I absolutely will, yeah.
I mean, every musician my age had that album. It was a guy who was unknown, James Brown at the time, unknown to white audiences, and yet that album was so magical, it made the pop top 10. I mean, that was unheard of. Yeah.
Well, that just shows you the difference of generation, because people my age, I'm 41.
Yeah.
And it's like the live albums that we go to are Cheap Trick live at Budokan,
Yeah.
Kiss Alive 1, which is almost, it's just like your story. You know, it's like this band that they just didn't transfer, you know, in the studio, but you get them live, as much as Alive 1 is kind of studio done, fixed a little bit. But, you know, then you've got, you know, like Frampton Comes Alive. You know, it's like those are like the live records that we go to.
That's right. That's your generation. I remember those. Well, anyway, it worked.
Yeah.
And the first hit, I Can Take Care of Myself, you know, that was from that live album. And the thing that helped it along was all these people had been coming to the Troubadour for a whole year.
Yeah.
And we were like, they were invested in us.
Yeah.
Emotionally. And it was like, our hero, our boys, look, our boys are making it now.
Yeah.
They're going to do a record. They're going to do it. And it I don't know if you've heard the whole live album, but it is something, if I do say so myself.
This is what I've got.
Yeah.
It's the one that's sitting
Well,
right
now
here.
you have the whole live album on there.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to rip this exact.
Yeah,
whole
keep it.
thing. Thank you so much.
My present.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So the beaters kind of faded, but you always kept doing it.
Yeah, we never stopped. You know, we always were able to, you know, draw enough people to keep playing, and I felt that it kept my name out there.
Yeah.
You know, and I love it.
How can you not?
We love it, and I'll tell you something over the years that I was able to encourage in the guys in the band was a certain pride. You know, you are the New York Yankees of L.A. You know, you're the best band. You know, you can blow anybody off the stage, and you have, and you do. And, you know, be proud. And they are. I mean, I got guys that have been with me since 1979.
Oh, wow. That's great.
That stay. You know, and the money is, you know, nobody ever got rich in this band.
No.
Trust me on that.
Yeah.
You know, but we still play. They still love it. And even though I'm doing the big band thing now,
Yeah, I want to get into that in a little
you
bit.
know, I'm still doing the beaters too.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been doing the big band?
About almost 2 years.
Okay.
I've always wanted to. You know,
Yeah.
I grew up, you know, listening to Duke Ellington and Count Basie and those early Sinatra records my mom brought home. And I always had a place in my heart for that stuff, too, the hip stuff.
Yeah.
You know, not the bullshit, but the hip stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother took me to see Count Basie one time, and I fucking was blown away, you know. All that sound coming off of there and that power, and then the thing that most 60s R&B and rock bands miss is the nuances and the subtleties.
Mm-hmm.
Basie could play, he could swing full balls out and then play at a whisper and still swing.
That's insane.
And I wanted to do that. You know, even with the Beaters, I think that's one thing that set the Beaters apart from other horn bands that followed us. Mm-hmm. There were no horn bands in L.A. when we put the Beaters together. There were several after that.
Right.
But they were still blowing, you know, Knock on Wood and Midnight Hour, and which starts at 10 and ends at 10. Mm-hmm. I said, man, no, we're not that. We're Ray Charles. We go from 10 to 2. To 4, you know, where appropriate. And I had to beat those guys into those guys, because they didn't gravitate toward that concept immediately, because they were like 3-4 years younger than me in some cases, and that's a big difference, because the music had changed radically.
Yeah.
I said, no, you don't play at 10 all the time, because you got nowhere to go. You know, I remember one time we were playing some mafia club back in the early 60s when I was like 19 years old. And at that time, there was 2 kinds of bands in the Times Square clubs. You were either Louis Prima or you were Joey D, you know, Peppermint Twist, the Twist era.
Yep.
And they all played too fast and too loud. And they would, it'd be 2 bands on at the same time, you know, one follow right after the other. And the band would always end with a really loud, fast song. And they would start with a loud, fast song. And I said, man, you can't do that. You can't do that, and that's not a way to compete. I said, they're not. It becomes a blur to your audience.
Right.
A big, loud blur of noise. I said, man, what's the quietest song I know? Stand By Me by Benny King. I would open my motherfucking set with Stand By Me.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, because it's like you, in the rock and roll mindset, it's you come out and you blow their face off with the first song, you know, and this is
not necessary.
No,
not necessary. I tried it one night just to see if I could do it, and it worked so fucking good that I said, and then that manager Al, he said, you can do anything. You don't have to end with a fast song. You can end with a ballad. If they love you, they will accept what you do if it's real.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, to this day, I'll end with "At This Moment." How are you going to follow that?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I mean, you know,
and you don't do an encore unless they beg for it. No fake encores. You don't automatically walk out with tepid applause.
I love that.
That's a rule number. Billy Vera's showbiz tip number 147.
So you wait. So the lights go down. You go off stage.
I go off stage. If they're applauding loudly and long, I'll come back. If not, I'm gone. Fuck it.
Exactly. Turn the lights on. I'm done.
Yeah. Why give them what they don't want?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, I've been to a lot of shows where it's like, you know, the show's over. You know the encore is coming.
Right.
Because it's like they're back there doing a shot of Jack and getting ready to come back on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
And people are leaving already.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, fuck
well,
it.
if you haven't given them cause to want you to come back, then don't come back. They'll tell you.
Exactly.
the audience is always right.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Oh, so you got the big band. You won a Grammy.
Well, not for that.
It wasn't for the big band.
No. I for last a long time now. I got into, just mainly because I loved it, historical work.
Oh yeah.
Reissuing, compiling and anthologizing and writing liner notes for CDs of old music. Everything from Little Richard to Ray Charles to Dean Martin into Louis.
Yeah.
I love old music. So I was nominated 4 times before this. Or no, this is my 4th nomination. What am I talking about? And so finally last year I won for Best Album Notes for a Ray Charles box set.
Nice.
Yeah, it was so thrilling. I have friends that have a lot of Grammys, and
yeah.
And I felt like, man, I'm an orphan. I'm left out. My friends got.
Yep.
And when's my day coming? That's how I felt with the #1 record. I had people my age who had #1 records when they were 22. When we were 22.
Right.
I was 42.
Did you get nominated for At This Moment?
No, the problem with that was a guy from the NARAS called me up, a guy on the head of the committee. He said, man, I feel terrible. He said, all of us on the committee wanted you to vote for your record. He said, but because it's a reissue, it doesn't qualify officially. It has to be new this year.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
He said otherwise. He said you had everything going for you. He said a great record, great song, and you were the underdog.
Yeah.
That made it. He said that's a formula for winning.
Oh man.
So
But you got to take solace in the fact, knowing that if it wasn't for the reissue fact, that there's a good chance you could have won it.
And you know what? Nobody ever thought, including myself, thought, why not enter it as a best reissue of the year? How stupid are we?
Did they have that category back then?
I think so. Best historical recording.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Best historical recording song.
Oh man. So you've been doing the liner notes. You also do a lot of voiceover work too.
Yeah, I fell into that. I was doing a radio show playing old records. My format was very simple but fun. I would take, let's say it's March. Today's March 1st that we're recording this. I don't know when you're going to run it, but I'd take March and then I'd pick a year, 1954, and then I would do my research and I'd pick 2 hours worth of R&B records that came out in March of 1954, and I'd play them on my show and talk about them. And it became a very popular show on KCRW, the NPR station. And I did that for 6 years. And one day, I come into the station, and there's a message. It said, he's got an interesting voice. You believe him when he talks. Would he be interested in doing voiceovers? Well, I had an expensive out-of-work actress wife at the time.
Yes.
It was costing me an arm and a leg. And I was desperate for money. I said, I'll try anything, man. I was doing anything for money that was legal. And so I did a voiceover, and it was for Nissan. And I decided to read it in a real deadpan, emotionless voice. And next thing you know, man, like 2 weeks later, I'm on the cover of Adweek, and my phone's ringing off the hook with people wanting to hire me to do, and I didn't even have an agent.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was that quick and that
Wow.
stupid. So I called my lawyer. I said, "You got any ideas?" And he mentioned this woman, Cindy, and I knew Cindy when she was a secretary for the agency that she now owned.
Okay.
And so she said, yeah, you come with us. We got this guy, Don Pitts, and my career took off. I made more money doing voiceovers than I ever made in rock and roll.
That's insane.
It was insane.
You have a #1 record, or a #1 single, I should say, but you made more money doing voiceover.
Absolutely. And it went on for a long time. It's slowed down a bit now, but I had a good 20-year run. I mean, I was doing everything from Burger King to cars to just anything. I did a lot of promos, network promos. I was the voice of CBS comedies for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
You know, tonight, watch The Nanny. She takes off all her clothes, shows lots of nipple. 8/7 Central.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
You do it. The
They
8/7
pay you for
Central's
that
like,
shit.
dude, I know that voice.
They pay you for that shit.
You did cartoon stuff too, right?
Well, not much, but a little bit. Yeah, that's a pretty clicky thing. You know, they the same guys do everything.
Right.
But I've done a few. I still get some residuals from those. And for a while, I was doing I was doing promos for every network except one, except Channel 5. I forget which one, but every network I was doing for NBC. They had a Friday night or Saturday night. They had all these scary shows on. It'll be the Saturday Night Trilogy. You know, I do that guy, right?
Yeah.
Backed by the music. The music behind me was written and performed by a porn star named Tracy Lords.
I'm familiar with her work. Shocking, I know. That's insane. So what do you want to get into off of? Let's see. I've got the big band record. What do you think?
You want a fast one or you want a slow one?
You know what? I want you to choose. What's your favorite track on there?
Well, I like three of them. I like it's a good bassy like blues called "Room with a View."
Mm-hmm.
There's a great Louis Armstrong song called "When It's Sleepy Time Down South," and there's a nice up-tempo swinger called "I Want to If I Could Be With You." So I mean,
let's do "When It's Sleepy Time Down South." And
beautiful arrangement.
Yeah, we'll talk about the song after we come on.
Shining on the fields below. Folks are crooning soft and low. You needn't tell me because I know when it's sleepy time down south. What a soft wind blowing on the pine wood trees. Folks down there live a life of ease. When my grandma's down praying on her knees, you know it's sleepy time down south. Steamboats on the river coming and going, yeah. It's splashing the night away. Hear those banjos ringing and the people are all singing. Dig 'em, they dance until the break of day. Dear old Southland with his dreamy song. Take me back where I belong. How I love to be in Grandma's arms when it's sleepy time down south.
mama's arms when it's sleepy time down south. When it's sleepy time down south.
That was Billy Vera and the Big Band with the song
When it's sleepy time down south.
When It's Sleepy Time Down South. That's right. You're getting music here on another fucking podcast. I was going to try to keep it clean for you. But like, yeah, you want to swear? I like to call it another fucking podcast. So boom, there we go.
Boomity boom.
That song. Yeah, let's talk about that song a little bit.
That was Louis Armstrong's theme song for many years. He'd open up every show with it.
Uh-huh.
And it was written by two Creole brothers from New Orleans, and an actor named Clarence Muse in the either late 20s or early 30s. And Leon Rene, one of the brothers, presented the song to Louis. He was playing in Culver City at a club called Sebastian's Cotton Club. And Leon, coming from New Orleans, knew that Louis, who came from New Orleans, loved red beans and rice. And his wife made great red beans and rice, so he invited Louis over. Fed him real good. He says, "Oh, by the way, I got a song for you might like." And of course, as you just heard, it's a wonderful song.
Absolutely.
I had to change the lyrics a little bit because some of the stuff, you can't say when the darkies are in the thing. You can't say that anymore.
Right. Well, if you're honoring the song, I think you can get away with it. But that's just my young man mentality.
Well, that happened with a song that I wrote for that Bonnie Raitt recorded. She was after she made her Nick of Time album. She called me up and she said, "Man, I got to make another album. They want another album. I don't write a lot of songs. You got anything? I need songs. I need songs." So I like the way she sings ballads. So I put together a tape of of some ballads for her. And at the time I was producing Lou Rawls with my friend Michael Kuskuna, whose first wife was the subject of Nick of Time.
Okay.
Michael had produced Bonnie way back in the beginning of her career. And he and I were producing Lou Rawls. So I'm telling Michael, I said, yeah, Bonnie wanted some songs. And Michael's current wife got on the phone. She said, "Give her that little Cajun song you wrote." And I said, "Oh, I don't know. It's from a male point of view. I don't think she'd dig it." No. I know she'll love it. Well, I stick it on the end of the tape, and guess what? She recorded that. But before she recorded it, she said, "I got one problem. The song," she said, "I realize the song is from the point of view of a redneck family.
Yeah.
And this is how they would really talk. And I want to keep it authentic, but I'm afraid that my liberal fans might get a little uptight when you say it must have been that wine-eyed, silver-tongued beaner." I
think that's hilarious.
I said, "Yeah, I guess it would, for that crowd."
Right, absolutely.
They're not the most open-minded bunch in the world.
Right.
I said, she said, "Anything we can do about that?" I said, "I don't know." What came to my mind just quickly, I said, "How about Schemer?" Must have been that wine-eyed silver look.
Right.
So she ended up recording the song. Well, she calls me from the studio the day of the session, and she says she's panicked. She says, I can't get my band to get the feel that you got on your demo." I said, "Well, that's because your musicians are too good." I said, "You got to play stupid like I play." She said, "Well, can you come over?" I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll come over." So I go over to the studio and they play it, they run it down, and they're playing really good, good musicianship anyway.
Right.
I said, "Guys," I said, "it's not dumb enough."
Yeah.
I said to the drummer, I said, you just put your hands in your pockets, don't touch your drumsticks, just play 1 and 3 on your bass drum. Thump, thump, thump. That's all you got to play. And I told the bass player the same thing. And then I played guitar, and then she was happy with the way it came out.
It's amazing. All you got to do is dumb it down a little bit.
Well, you know where I learned that? There was a magazine article in the early 60s, Life magazine, I think. They were doing a story on Phil Spector. And the reporter was looking over his shoulder in the booth. And Phil says to the engineer, Larry Levine, I don't know. He says, it's not dumb enough. And I said, wow. If Phil Spector, who's making these records that everybody thinks are genius,
right,
is saying it's not dumb enough, he must know what he's talking about. I said, I think you got to, what he's really saying is simplify.
Absolutely. You know, and Gene Simmons always said it best, too, is you don't play with your hands, you play with your dick.
Yeah, right.
And it's basically the same thing. So
Yeah. It's like, I lost my train of thought. Shit. Oh, well, never mind.
That happens. It happens. So you got a couple shows coming up, or one show at least next week.
This Saturday, March 8th, 8 p.m., Catalina's Jazz Club on Sunset Boulevard, 1 block east of Highland.
I promise I will not ask you to get on the guest list. I will buy my own ticket.
What a man. That's what a real man does.
Well, you know what, man? It's like everybody's out there to make a buck, you know? It's like,
I got 18 musicians to pay.
Exactly.
So, you know what I learned years ago when we first started the Beaters? I had one guy in the band that was like so afraid his friends weren't going to like him if he didn't put him on the guest list. So he had like 10 people. I said, dude, so I had a band meeting. I said, look, we got 10 of us. I said, if everybody brings 10 people in, that's 100 people.
Yep.
In a 200-seater, do you think they're going to ask us back? If half the people aren't paying,
right?
They think. I said it's all about getting. It's not about getting the gig. It's about being asked to come back.
Right. Absolutely.
So I said here's the deal. Everybody gets one guest, and if you don't have a guest tonight, you can give your guest to him. And that's been a good rule that we've kept. I said, if worst comes to worst, blame mean old Billy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair, though.
Sure it is.
I mean, it's fair. It's like
you don't go to the butcher shop and ask for a free steak.
Well, I do. But hey, give me a free bowl of soup with that, too. So,
yeah.
So it's next Saturday. Tickets are available as we speak, but I know I saw something on the Facebook page where make a reservation.
Yeah, it's a good idea, especially on a Saturday. I mean, sometimes we sell out, sometimes we don't.
Okay.
But be safe.
Yeah.
Call
absolutely.
Catalina's, and you can make your reservations there.
No, this is the big band.
Big 18-piece band, man. I got 18 of the best jazz musicians in L.A., including 2 beaters and 1 former beater.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Have you ever thought about taking this show up to Vegas?
I think it's too expensive. I think I don't have a big enough name.
Okay.
That was a problem with the beaters. We played Vegas. We played Caesar's Palace at the height of the record. We opened for Chuck Berry one weekend, New Year's weekend, and we opened for 2 weeks for David Copperfield, the magician. But later on, Jay Leno wanted to bring us up for his act, but there wasn't enough money to pay even 10. Well, at that time, 9 beaters.
Right.
So 18 ain't going to happen. But what you can do is you can use local musicians, because with this kind of music, they don't have to know your music. They can
read charts.
Good, you got good jazz guys. They can read.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can read fly shit on a piece of paper.
That's right. So that just means musicians out there, study.
That's right.
I can't read music. I can play Ace Frehley songs. That's what I do. So, Billy, dude, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
You got your website is
BillyVera.com.
BillyVera.com, and find everything about him. And you got your links for iTunes and all your music on there too?
A lot of it, yeah.
All right, cool.
iTunes, TuneCore, Amazon, all that shit.
Cool, man. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. This has been a very educational interview. I really appreciate it.
Cool. It was fun.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. All right, folks, that is it for another fucking podcast, episode 14. Episode 15 next week, I forgot to tell you, I will have Robbie Wrist. He is, Wrist, is that his name? Yeah, Wrist. He's been a musician around here for a long time, but you know him as Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch. He's petitioning to get on CNN to take over that Pierce douche that got fired. So we will see you next week. Don't forget the sponsor, rockstarleatherworks.com. Go out and see Hairball. I will see you next week. I do love you all. Actually, I'm going to close with this. A song that you probably did not know that Billy Vera did. I did not know that. See if you recognize this theme song. With that, I say, good day, and I do love you all.
My eyes are getting weary, my back is getting tight. I'm sitting here in traffic on the Queensboro Bridge tonight. But I don't care, cause all I wanna do is cash my check and drive right home to you. Cause baby, all my life I will be driving home